gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow. Hello,
Well, if you want a number one goodness, Lord, I don't know where you get more satisfaction than in a great grandson of mine.
Where is he at?
I believe he's in the sheep business down in Midian Parish. Over in Egypt, he killed a man that was abusing our people in the brickworks.
Greetings, everybody. Today we're going to be discussing the relationship between the so-called black people in America and the Jewish people. We're going to be focusing on the 20th century when migrants of Jewish people came to America. And there was various other European migrants making their way to America during that time period. They viewed America as the land of opportunity. But we're going to be focusing on the Jewish people and their relationship with the so-called black people, because I think it's safe to say that out of all the migrant groups that came from Europe, it is the Jewish people who have had the most success in America. This still holds today. If you search up who's the CEO or owner of the top industries in America or the top companies in America, you're either going to find it's a Jewish person that's running it, or there's Jewish investors that is supporting the industry or business.
The red are the executives that are Jewish at these companies. This right here is a chart of Universal Studios, 20th Century Fox, ABC News, CBS News, Love Pictures, Warner Brothers, ESPN Sports, Fox News, Washington Post, Electric Boat, MTV Music Television, Nickelodeon, USA Today, Wall Street Journal, Comedy Central, NBC Entertainment, Google, what else do we have? Disney, ABC Kids Entertainment, YouTube, Los Angeles Times, Discovery Network, Paramount Pictures, Facebook, Washington Post, Yahoo, Marvel, Hulu.
Yo, bro. All right, see? There's only like 5 of them, bro. There's like literally 5. There's literally like 5 companies. Can y'all not speak like that? I'm literally Jewish and y'all fuck with me, bro. It don't mean that you're a bad Jew. Am I a bad Jew to y'all?
So we're going to get into how they became so successful and how so-called black people played a major role in their success in America, which often gets left out or forgotten about. So if we're going to start anywhere, I think it's best to start with Hollywood. This is where the Jewish people made their mark coming to America. Now, of course, they was always the bankers of Europe, but in the 20th century, you have what you call the Federal Reserve. So along with all these migrants coming to America, now they had their financial institution set up in America with the Federal Reserve, which they like to call a conspiracy, but we all know who was behind that. So the Federal Reserve was set up in 1913. It was 10 years later that the Warner Brothers had founded Warner Bros. And in the films that I just showed, you can see that they had all black cast starring in movies during that time. Now, this was actually pretty bold during that time period because that was what was known as the Jim Crow era. Black people had just came out of slavery not that long ago. So they was looked down upon by white people in this country. So having roles with all black casts was a pretty daring move during that time period.
In 1954, one white woman risked her entire career for a random black man. Betty White was a host and producer of a nationally broadcast TV show on NBC. One day, she saw a talented black tap dancer named Arthur Duncan and decided to cast him as a regular performer on the show. But as soon as the show aired across the South, Southern television stations began threatening to boycott the program, demanding to remove the black dancer from the lineup. But Betty didn't even blink and famously replied, "I'm sorry, he stays. Live with it." Not only did she refuse to remove him, but she even gave him more screen time. Then, as expected, racism played its part. The show started losing Southern stations, and NBC ended up canceling the show later that same year.
So the question is, why did they decide to take a chance on black people? Was it simply about helping them out, helping them overcome what all they have been through? Or was it financial gain? So we're going to look into what was the true motivation in setting black people up in these roles in the early ages of Hollywood. You're going to see that the relationship between Ashkenazi Jewish people and so-called black people is a transactional relationship. So this transactional relationship was based off of, what can you provide for me? This is different than a genuine relationship based upon mutual empathy and care, or looking out for the best interest of another person. The transactional relationship is more self-serving. It often leads to exploitation for financial gain.
Hollywood has two agendas. It's profit, but it's also propaganda. I think they want to influence society with these movies, and sometimes that's more important than making the money. And then sometimes the money is the most important. You know, you never know which God, is being served here, which master is being served here, so to speak, because certain things are done purely for the propaganda of it. I think movie companies, for the most part, a lot of them started and were owned by the same people who want to engineer society anyway. It's just part of their portfolio. Some of these folks are so rich, Hollywood's a toy.
Same people who own the labels own the prisons.
Literally the same people?
Literally the same people who own the labels own private prisons. The records that come out are really geared to push people towards that prison industry.
But they didn't make you write those lyrics.
It's not about making somebody write the lyrics. It's about being there as guardrails to make sure certain songs make it through and certain songs don't. Some records are made by committee, meaning record company guys sit around and tell the artists, this is hot, say that, do this. We're gonna have this guy write the lyrics. We're gonna have that. You have, the record company pushing the narrative. Some social engineering going on here to make sure those prisons stay full.
Just ask yourself, why is Robert Kraft, who is a billionaire and owner of the Patriots organization, why has he gotten so close with a rapper from Philadelphia known by the name of Meek Mill? What is their relationship? What do these two men have in common with one another, seeing as they both come from completely different backgrounds and tax brackets? They understand how influential black artists can be, and they hope to capitalize off of that influence, just like Ice Cube was saying. Now, I don't know which ways specifically that they're going to capitalize off of Meek Mill, but it always revolves around money. He is not in Robert Kraft's space just because he likes the guy. There is something of value that Meek Mill can provide for them that they hope to exploit. And this exploitation of black people in America has been going on for quite some time now. So this is nothing new. Just as it happened in the music industry, it also happened in the movie industry. So in the 70s, they had what you call black exploitation. So they would feature black people in these black films, showing themselves as all the racist stereotypes that white people thought about us. They would showcase black people as pimps, drug dealers, gangsters, and they would make them the heroes of these movies. And the commercial success went on to capture black audiences. And what this does is it influences black people to behave in such manners. But we know in real life, these type of people who engage in those activities don't always make it to be the heroes. These people go to jail in real life. They go to prisons. And who makes money off of prisons? So it's a complete workaround with what they are doing when it comes to the film industry as well as the music industry. They make money off of selling criminal enterprise activities to the people, and then they make money off of the people who engage in those criminal activities, thinking that it is all just a game. And the ones being exploited often don't see how they're harming their own people. Until it comes back to hurt them, until it comes back to bite them in the butt. You know, until you wake up one day out of nowhere and have full-blown AIDS. Right after firing your Jewish manager who was mismanaging your money. That's how transactional relationships work. These people leech off of us until we cut them off. And then you see their true colors. Ice Cube knew this all along. He used to be a part of the same rap group as Eazy-E. He knew way back then that they were being manipulated and being robbed. He knew that that person was going to divide their group. So he got out before it all fell apart, which eventually it did. And in his diss song, No Vaseline, released in 1992, he made it known that the Jewish man, Jerry Heller, was the cause of the split between the group. They were being exploited like every other artist that came before them. These men came out of the ghetto slums of Compton and South Central. So of course, they were excited to be making some type of money and showcasing their talent to the rest of the world. But then it comes back to being used. It comes back to knowing what your true worth is and understanding that you're being misvalued by another person who is making money off of you. And also in knowing that you're being promoted for something that's more nefarious than what you initially thought. The prison industry today makes billions of dollars in revenues, but how do they keep that going if the right messages is being spread? How do they keep the prisons packed if we are influencing our own people to behave righteously and to avoid committing criminal acts and stuff like that? No, they want to promote the opposite. They want these prisons to stay filled. So that is the nefarious side of the business.
Opioid thing, man, is
But being a crackhead wasn't cool back then. Being a crackhead wasn't cool. Now they seem like they're making it cool to be drinking lean and syrup and
it's the most dangerous. It's the most dangerous thing that's facing our society.
Are you so why sign an artist that would promote that?
Because I already answered that question. You weren't paying attention. She asked me talent or issues, and I said talent. But I have to. I can't give up on people.
But I'm saying that's hypocritical, though. You're saying
it's opportunistic. Yeah. I got people to feed. I got a business to run.
You're gonna make Dame Dash take this clip and call you a culture vulture.
They put their own interest first, and if you're no longer resourceful and bringing in financial gain, then they view you as an liability and they'll easily cut you off. There's no strings attached. And we see this all the time throughout the industry, whether it's in Hollywood or in the music industry. They'll easily cut people off once they become liabilities.
You know, I was two months, I'm gonna just be honest with y'all, I was 2 months from going bankrupt. Really? And I put everything I had into it. We moved to Italy, we moved to the factories, and we survived. We survived through the cancellation. We're back #1.
And once again, this doesn't always have to be a decline in a person's performance. It could just be simply them going against bad practices, bad business practices. They could be standing up for themselves and speaking out against bad contracts, which happened all the time. As so-called black people, we had just made it out of slavery. So a lot of us was already poor. So even though we were given these opportunities, even though we were often getting taken advantage of, it was better than the position that we was already in, having come from nothing. So those who did stand up for themselves were often easily replaced.
Jail would fuck me up, would turn me like this, is I was like, no politicians is even getting at us. Even though I represent 5 million fucking sales. And no politicians even checking for it. They're not even sending us nothing to try to make us, they're not even thinking of it. And in business, you know, if you want to fuck with somebody, you know, you try to, they're not even looking at us like that. That means we ain't a threat. But by the next election, I promise, I'm gonna be sitting across from all the candidates. I bet you. You know how I be making it? I promise you. I'm not even gonna be, I'm gonna be so far from where I am now in 4 years. God willing, I'm alive. It's on. I guarantee you, we will have our own political party, and it won't be just for black people. It's gonna be for Mexicans. It's gonna be for Mexicans. It's gonna be for black people. It's gonna be for Armenians. I don't give a fuck. All you lost tribe motherfuckers right now, we need to have our own political party because we all have the same motherfucking problem. We built this nation, and we get none of the benefits.
In fact, he says American presidents and presidential candidates are too quick to do the bidding of the Jewish lobby.
Surely, Your Majesty, you're not telling me that the Jewish lobby in the United States pulls the strings of the presidency?
Not entirely, but I think even a little too much, even for Israel interests.
You think the Jewish lobby in the United States is too powerful for the interests of Israel?
I think so. Sometimes they are disserving the interests of Israel because they're pushing around too many people.
How do you mean pushing around?
Well, pressuring. They have many means at their disposal. They are putting up pressure on many, many people. And at the end, I don't think that it will even help Israel.
Why, if this is true, why would the President of the United States pay attention to that lobby?
They are strong.
Strong in what sense?
They are controlling many things.
Controlling what?
Newspapers, medias,
Your Majesty.
Banks, finances, and I'm going to stop there.
Well, now wait just a second.
They're making it bigger than, you know, they're making it so big now. Even the charges and what they're saying, it's bigger than who I am now. So
what do you think they're doing this for? You were talking in the elevator. What do you think they're doing it for? Why they're doing this to you?
Because, I mean, the way this country is successful is if we have one set of rules and everybody follows them. If anybody gets outside of that set of rules and they're in a public view like I am, you know, it's like detrimental to everybody following the rules if I'm representing, like, to what they think is that I represent lawlessness and the outlaw mentality, and I represent that thug mentality from the street. So they feel like if they can punish me, then it'll punish people who are not as brave as I am, who don't speak out against things like me, who not scared to walk through the streets with no bodyguards. See, they need to put me in jail. These other guys, they don't have to put in jail because they can arrest them on smaller things. They can't arrest me on those small things. They got to frame me. They got to do things like this. They got to have, you know, 30 charges and none of them have to do with me, you know.
So this is the story of how Jewish people and black people began their relationship. The Jewish people got into the movie industry at the time. The Warner Bros. Were raised by Polish immigrant parents in the late 1800s in Baltimore, Maryland, London, Ontario, and Youngstown, Ohio. The Warner Brothers, Harry, Sam, Albert, and Jack, founded their first official studio in Hollywood in 1918 And in 1923, they created Warner Bros. Pictures with Harry as the president, Jack and Sam as vice presidents in charge of production, and Albert as treasurer. By the early 1940s, Warner Bros., which had become known for introducing sound to film, such as the jazz singer. So the jazz singer is what brought them into the limelight. And we're going to get into how that's also connected to Black people, to Negroes. So the Warner Brothers, and like everybody else in America at the time, they knew the racial divide that was taking place in the country. So being a startup business, they went along with the social norms of the time. They had to cater to those who were racist white people who looked down upon Black people, because essentially they had to make their way into America. They had to be accepted by those who they viewed as Americans, which was predominantly the white people. So yes, even on the West Coast in Hollywood, originally they pandered to the racist white people from the South, which is why you had films like Birth of a Nation. This was an era where Black people were still being lynched and killed for no reasons at all. Black people were put through hell in this country. But the one thing that did ease some of the oppression that they've been through is that a lot of them had talent. And even the oppressors could not overlook these gifts and talents. They were amused by all the things that these former slaves were able to do when it comes to dancing, singing, and performing. And there's lots of other contributions that Black people also made in America, the things that often get overlooked, such as the inventions. But I'm not going to get into that. I'm just going to mainly focus on the relationship as far as the Jewish ties goes. And that mostly involved the dancing and the singing and, the cultural aspect of what we brought to this country. But it is important to note that this took place when we were first brought to America as slaves. When the slaves were out on the plantations suffering from the cruel oppression, they will often sing out spiritual songs, and these songs became known as Negro spirituals. And it consisted of things such as Kumbaya and lots of other biblically inspired songs. So Negro spirituals was basically the first genre of music in this nation from so-called Black people. And out of this, you're going to see that everything else was birthed from this. The first professional singing group of so-called Black people were the Jubilee Singers. And these singers went around the world singing Negro spiritual songs that was actually being recorded for the first time. And it said they even visited the Queen of England and performed for her. So this was the first time that we got what we see today as far as musicians touring around the world and the industry that we have. And then from the Negro spirituals branched out different genres of music, such as the blues, and then ultimately that led to jazz. And a lot of these songs were initially focused on the oppression and struggle that we were going through as a people. And a lot of it was biblical themed as well, which also helped us make it through whatever we was going through. It was inspiring. It was inspirational. So they began to capitalize off the talents of these former slaves. And then you can see once we were put into the film industry, right, it was a lot of singing involved in the movies. The music came along with the acting. And this set up the potential for a lot of money to be made. But the only problem is black people were in no position themselves to be able to profit from their own talents and gifts. Somebody had to manage them. Somebody had to look over them. Now, at the same time, this country was racist. A lot of people in this country didn't want to see black people put into these positions because they viewed them as slaves. They viewed them as less than. They didn't even want them to be set free. So then enters Jewish people. They have this unique position to where they can cater to both sides because they are considered white by race because they have the features of a white person, right? If you see them compared to the rest of white America, you wouldn't tell the difference. But at the same time, they also have their own ethnicity as Jewish people. So they didn't necessarily have the same mentality as white people. Now, not all of them did. Some of them was racist. Some of them did own slaves. But they also were more willing to actually work alongside black people. And of course, financial gain played a major role in that. So with the unique position that they were placed in, as well as being the financial backers of this nation, they were able to play the role of the middleman. They were able to be the mediator at times. They were able to bridge the gap to where black people can become resourceful in this country and money can be made. So that is what eventually took place. And along with this, it certainly did help out black people in some ways, but transactional, of course. So this is how the Warner Brothers made their way into the Hollywood industry. They came out with a film called The Jazz Singer. The main actor in this film was actually a Jewish person himself. He went by the name Al Johnson. He was an American singer, comedian, actor in the 1900s. He was born in the Russian Empire in 1886. So he himself was a migrant who came to America to star in this film and paved the way of Warner Brothers in Hollywood. Now, the main theme of this film was based upon blackface, which ties back to, once again, black people. So this is how Warner Brothers got their start in Hollywood. It was based around blackface. And then you also have the title of the film called The Jazz Singer. And I think it's safe to say we all know where jazz came from. So seeing jazz take off in America, which was predominantly black artists, black musicians, they got in on it and they incorporated it into their film. But there's something much more deeper that you can get from understanding why they did it. So at the time, blackface was pretty common in America. As I explained earlier, racism was very, very prominent at the time. So they used blackface, which was something that was socially acceptable in America. Now, blackface has been a thing dating back even further than the birth of America. There's traditions in Spain and Dutch where they dress up in blackface to mock the Moors. So it became popular in America when a man by the name of Thomas Rice made a mockery of black people in a comedic theme. Thomas Rice would dress in blackface and poor clothing, and his character was known as Jim Crow. Rice adapted and popularized a traditional song of slaves called Jump Jim Crow. The name became used for the Jim Crow laws later that enforced racial segregation in the South. So, Jim Crow laws was basically to segregate black people from entering white establishments. So the Jim Crow figure was a feature of the minstrel shows that toured the South. this white man went around dressing in blackface to entertain the same racist white people that hated black people. It was a mockery of black people. So the main theme of these minstrel shows was to make a mockery of Negroes, former slaves, as a way of comedy. So they would dress in blackface and mock everything that black people were known for doing, such as singing and dancing. Now, of course, that was not all that we were limited to, but we were former slaves. So we weren't allowed to do or have freedom as everybody else had in this country. We were limited. So they took the things that we were able to do, the gifts and talents that we naturally had, and they imitated them in a form of mockery while making money off of that. So this was the blueprint that Warner Bros. Would later imitate. According to the accredited musician Henry Cowell, he wrote in Mello's Journal that jazz interpreted a mixture of African American and Jewish elements, stating that the fundamentals of jazz are the syncopation and rhythmic accents of the Negro. Their modernization is the work of New York Jews. So jazz is Negro music seen through the eyes of Jews. So from my interpretation, what he's saying is it originated from Negroes. They came up with the fundamentals of jazz. But then he said the modernization is the work of New York Jews. So what I get out of that is the Jews helped make it more successful around the country and around the world. They helped push it. They helped push the jazz music, finance it. And proof of that is it made its way all the way to Germany in the 1930s. So if you go and check, you'll see that there was Nazi propagandas of posters showing a black person appearing to be the resemblance of a monkey, of course, showing the racism. And the black person playing the jazz instrument had the Star of David badge worn on his coat. And the Nazi Germans called it Entarte music, which was basically saying that it was Negro music. But they made it a point to show that Star of David worn on that jazz musician's coat in this racist poster. So that's just showing that there was a Negro-Jewish connection when it came to the jazz music, being that Negroes were, of course, the artists and the musicians, and the Jewish people were the ones that were promoting it at the time heavily. It was financial benefits to be made off of jazz. So ironically, this was kind of what the movie The Jazz Singer was about for the Warner Brothers. The main character was Jewish. Even in the film, he was playing a Jewish person, and he would dress in blackface to perform as a minstrel character, and he would make money off of this. And this is what the Jewish people, the Warner Brothers, were doing with this film. They were making money off of this film showing a Jewish character playing blackface. And this is how they got their start in the industry. They were not afraid to deal with black people in order to make money. And that goes back to the transactional relationship between Jewish people and Negroes. So that is how the Warner Brothers got their start in America. And other Jewish people will follow the same blueprint. It was okay for them to assimilate or to accept American culture as long as they were able to benefit from it while retaining their Jewish heritage. So this business approach carried over into the music industry the same as it did in the entertainment and movie industry. From the past and up until the present, you're going to see that there was Jewish people right beside black musicians. And this is a common theme that still goes on today. And from all the success that has been achieved, many people solely focus on that and not the negative consequences that has came out of this transactional relationship between Jewish people and Negroes. So we're not going to give you just one side of things. We're going to give you all points of views. Now we're going to give you the point of view coming from Black people. The Black people who have been known to be exploited by the music and the entertainment industry. Historically, several independent record company owners and music executives, some of whom were Jewish, gained a reputation for exploiting Black artists by engaging in morally dubious business practices, such as unfair publishing deals or withholding royalties. This behavior was characteristic of many music promoters during the post-war era, regardless of background, who were primarily focused on maximizing profits. Now let's get into why they were able to exploit these Black talents. It is because racism limited Black entrepreneurs, which means that we weren't allowed to own our own businesses and promote ourselves in this nation. We needed representation that didn't look like us. So what this did was it allowed Jewish people to come in who, of course, were already business savvy. And they became the intermediaries in the recording, distribution, and radio. The major record labels such as Chess Records, Atlantic Records, and Sun Records were influential to R&B and rock and roll. And they were Jewish-owned labels. And many of the artists face the same things that they are still facing today, and that is exploitation. So while the Jewish people were able to help Black people get from out of their circumstances, that is being poor and not being able to pursue their talents and gifts and showcase it to the world, but at the same time, they were making money off of them, massive amounts of money off of them, and not giving them their share in those profits. So many of these artists would wind up broke. They were essentially being robbed by the music executives, which still happens today. And many artists have spoken out about this, from Michael Jackson to Prince to even Lupe Fiasco. He was quoted in an article as saying, "Artists get robbed for their publishing by dirty Jewish execs." And they called him anti-Semitic for it. And he replied in a tweet by saying, "This makes me anti-Semite. How?" So this is a common thing that happens in the music and entertainment industry. Even Kanye West has spoken out, and they responded with the same thing, calling him anti-Semitic. But here's what the Bible has to say about that. In Deuteronomy chapter 19, verse 15, it says, "One witness shall not rise up against a man for any iniquity or for any sin, and any sin that he sinneth at the mouth of two witnesses or at the mouth of three witnesses, shall the matter be established." So it's saying that by the mouth of two or more witnesses, then you will get to the truth of the matter. It will establish what is being claimed. When it comes to Black people being exploited in the industry, it is way more than just two witnesses saying the same things. So this can't all just be lies. The Jewish people who are running the industry, they don't care about their artists. They are all about maximum profits. And it's gotten so bad that they now are considering replacing humans as their artists. They are now incorporating AI artists into the industry. You're now going to start seeing AI artists on top of the charts. And what this does is it removes that human being that has the ability to earn their fair share or to want their fair share in what they're creating. But now they could just have an AI come up with whatever song they want them to make and make maximum profits off of the AI. So it's just more money going into their pockets. And yes, this is a common theme in other aspects of industries all across the world. But as focusing on the entertainment and music industry, this is for certainly taking place as we speak. And what's wrong about it is it was black people that very much played a role in most of the music genres that we have today in America, whether it's blues, jazz, R&B, rock and roll, hip hop. That was something that black people came up with. And many of these artists weren't paid what they contributed to. They were robbed of what they created. But the Jewish people took advantage of that. They took advantage of their situations as not being able to, of course, rise to the role of ownership. Every time that black people in America tried to achieve progress and to make more of themselves, they were always sit back by the United States government. You had the FBI who wanted to prevent the rise of a black messiah, which was just somebody that wanted to help their people progress. So they were assassinated black people throughout the 60s and the 70s and locking them up in mass amounts for no reason at all other than just to help their people achieve success in America. Because we have been here for over 400 years, shedding blood, tears, sweat, building this country up with nothing in return. We didn't get 40 acres or a mule. But yet immigrants can come in from all across the world, from Europe, and then they could come in and build off of the success, off of the country that we helped build up. They could come in and make maximum profits off of what we helped build, what we helped contribute, while we on the receiving end get hardly anything in exchange for that. So then you have people like Ben Shapiro, who's Jewish, coming on our radio stations and telling us that reparations aren't important, that they don't work. And then Charlemagne the God responded by saying they worked for Jewish people. They still receive Holocaust reparations, which is a fact. They are still being paid from the Germans for the Holocaust that took place all the way back in the 1940s. This was their grandparents that had to go through that, but yet they're still receiving reparations to this day. So why is it a problem when black people who had to go through what they've been through for 400 years and still are suffering the consequences of systemic racism in this nation, why is it a problem when we want our fair share? Shapiro responded by saying, oh, that's different. But it's not difference. That's the hypocrisy. Everybody is out for themselves. Everybody is out for their own people. But when we want to do right by our people and get what we deserve, then it's a problem when we do it. Black people in this country have been placed in a cycle to where we have to be dependent upon others in order to make it in this nation. And that isn't true freedom. We basically have handlers. We basically are not allowed to achieve success without having somebody's hand over us. I mean, how many times have we seen a millionaire or a black billionaire be brought low? All those riches that they got, it didn't mean nothing in the end because we truly don't have freedom in this nation. You can be the most successful black person in this country, but once you say something that goes against the narrative, once you say something that challenges the narrative, and you speak out against certain people who are placed in positions of power in this country, all the money that you're making, your bank account, your livelihood, all that can come to an end because we we're not in control. We're not at the top. We haven't been allowed to break out from our oppressors, to break out of this system. It is easy for them just to create false allegations about you and then take you to court, sue you, come up with lawsuits, and keep your money going towards providing lawyers and various other methods that they do in order to bring you down. They could set you up, send you to prison for something that you didn't do, just to bring you down. These are the type of tactics that are used on black people in this country. We're often being reminded by Jewish people about how we are allies, how much of an allies we should be to them, because they stood side by side with us during the civil rights movement. But at the end of the day, it didn't get us nowhere. We're still stuck in the same predicament as we was 400 years ago. We are still in the land of our captivity, and we are still not as free as when we was in chains. And that's just the truth. If you have all these millions of dollars and you can't freely express yourself and freely say what you want to say without risk of losing everything, you're not free. So the best way for me to explain the relationship of Negroes and Jewish people is right here in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 43 through 44. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. This is our current situation. It is a transactional relationship. These people, who many were immigrants, came to this country and they got above us very high. They were able to exploit us and make money off of us while we remained in the same conditions. They are the ones that we have to rely on in order to eat in this nation. They are over us. They come into our communities and they rent to us. They come into our communities and they sell food. They sell all the things, all the supplies that we need. So that this verse really sums up what is taking place. And I believe that it's an effort for us to be distracted from the truth, to be distracted by this. They try to rein us in. They even get people who are our own to try to rein us in. So we just have to wake up to the truth and not be afraid to express what's really going on. Because if you're not talking about it, then nothing's ever going to change. We can't be afraid to tell the truth. So this relationship between Jews and Negroes is not beneficial for both sides. It is not in our best interest to be used by these people.